Thank you for joining us on the NoMi Truth podcast, where we tell you what it's really like to live in Northern Michigan, run a business, have a family,
try to
survive the Northern Michigan lifestyle. And today we have a good friend of mine, special guest, Mike Rossman.
Thank you.
Welcome to the pod, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be here. I'm glad you're doing this. The room looks awesome. Dewan is awesome. We couldn't do this. Well, first of all, shout out to Dewan. We could not do this without him. Dewan and I slides between the cameras.
Yeah, Dewan and I met through a friend a while back, and he is in charge of everything Gino D'Angelo Media. And I could not do this podcast without him. So thank you for mentioning Dewan.
Absolutely.
Before we get started today, just give us a little bit. I know who you are. Obviously, you're a good friend. You've got a great story. Tell us a little bit about your journey. And the reason I wanted to have you on this podcast is you went from Traverse City to Charlevoix, now to downtown Petoskey. And I think anybody that's considering those three areas definitely would be wise to listen to what you have to say, good, bad, right, or wrong, and obviously be as honest as possible. So
yeah,
I'll turn it over to you.
I think it kind of starts. I'm from Metro Detroit. I'm from Royal Oak, Troy originally.
So you're rich.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the crazy thing, and that's part of this whole story and our whole conversation is when I grew up in Royal Oak, it was nothing like that.
Right.
Like,
that's really changed too.
It was 1,200 square foot house was $120,000 at most, and now they're $400,000 and $500,000, and it's like this chic place to live. But when you grow up in Metro Detroit, everything's either auto workers or fast paced and kind of crazy, and there's a lot of traffic. So, going to school, all that stuff. Ended up in Kalamazoo, went to Western, then I went to Grand Rapids. And every stop I take, it feels like it gets a little bit slower.
Okay.
And a little, there's a caveat there, of course, just a little bit different. So you go from the craziness of Metro Detroit to Grand Rapids, and it's a little bit slower, but everyone still works and it's normal. Everyone wears suits. And then you go to Traverse City, and it's still a city, but it's Northern Michigan. I went on an interview when I was moving from Grand Rapids to Traverse City, and I wore a suit and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, they're like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, the guy was like, hey, man,
we don't do that here.
That's exactly what he said. He was like, yeah, we don't do that here. I was like, all right. So I never wore a suit to another interview again. We were there for 3 years total, and a very cool place to live. Obviously, it's grown like crazy, and it's much different from when we lived there.
Yeah.
But then from there, we moved, my wife and I moved to Charlevoix, and that was really quiet. From Memorial Day to a little bit after Labor Day, it's busy and bridge traffic and all that stuff. But from Labor Day to Memorial Day, with the exception of a little bit in Christmas, there's just not a lot going on. So about a year ago, with our practices both being here, we decided to come to Petoskey, and feels like I moved back to the big city. It's kind of crazy. And I know obviously Petoskey is a small place and everything, but there's a lot of challenges, a lot of benefits, but a lot of challenges to all these Northern Michigan places. First is obviously your world is the real estate side of things.
Yeah.
Is just crazy. How much it's appreciated and all that. And with interest rates going up, I think the biggest part of you and I talked about this podcast before you started it was affordable housing and just how difficult that is for workers and for employers trying to find, employees, because that's how I actually got my first job in Traverse City. Was someone took the job that I ended up accepting, tried to find a house and couldn't get a house. So they, passed on the job, and that's the job I got. And that's kind of how I ended up in this world, was the inability for people to find housing was how I got here. So, that's such a big theme, I think, for Northern Michigan. And the truth about Northern Michigan is it's getting hard to afford to live here.
No, absolutely. And that's a great point. I want to back up a second. You were in Grand Rapids, you interviewed in Traverse City. What caused you to want to go from, because Grand Rapids and Traverse City they're both two great places to live, but two very different places to live.
For sure. So my story as far as like work and life basically starts, in law school. I went to Cooley in Grand Rapids. clerked for the Court of Appeals there. I met my wife, Ashley, there. And then we had a funny situation where she was at the end of residency, and we met in August. And when doctors are in residency, they basically pick up jobs in like October, November, December for the following year. And Ashley and I met in August. So we're like, 2 months into dating, like going on interviews to places, treating them like mini vacation. And she's like, well, would you like maybe think about living here? Because you don't know after 2 months.
100%.
I mean, I did, let's be honest.
That's funny.
But so that was the impetus to go to Traverse City was Ashley.
Sure.
And so we knew we were going to go up there, and I started trying to find a job, interviewing, all that stuff. And the job I ended up taking was in corporate counsel for a title agency. And after doing that for a couple of years and managing some branches and doing the business development and all that, I ended up starting my own company with a few partners, and did that for a couple of years. And then through some unfortunate job circumstances on Ashley's side, we decided to leave Traverse City, and we bought this practice here in Petoskey. And I continued to run the title company for about a year after that, but commuting just, you're driving an hour and a half, hour every day.
It's a long ways.
Yeah, it's just too much. So from there, I started doing all the drafting stuff that, I do, all the legal side of the attorney work. And I also started running Ashley's practice. And after another like year and a half, 2 years of living in Charlevoix, we had our son, Arnie.
Yeah.
And we realized that we were basically commuting like a little over an hour every day, just to and from work. We're like, this is dumb. Like, why don't we go live in the city? This full story, but we were having lunch across the street here. And you're like, oh, there's a house up the street. You should go look at it. I was like, I'm not interested in that, but Ashley wanted to go see it. So, no slam to you here, but I'm pretty sure I've never stepped foot inside my house with you. Candace, also part of the team.
Shout out Candace, everybody. I always say everybody that knows me knows Candace. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Candace showed us the house, I think like 3 times here in downtown Petoskey, and we ended up just buying it. And it's been awesome to have a better commute, which has led to a little bit work-life balance.
Right.
I rode my bike down here to do the podcast.
We're watching it to make sure it doesn't get stolen. If Mike has to leave during the podcast, it's because his bike was stolen.
I need, if Ashley, if you are watching, I cannot remember that code. I'm very sorry. We're going to need that so I can lock my bike back up.
That's funny.
But yeah, that is how we got here on the professional side. Was everything real estate and everything medical kind of collided. Yeah. And here we are.
I think, not to be negative, but to be honest, the truth of the matter is the house you sold to move here was perfect. I mean, it was water view, water access, beautiful home, Charlevoix. It just wasn't close enough to where you wanted to be.
Well, not only that, but going back to the small town, we would be, you're right. Living there in May, June, July, and August.
It's great.
Was phenomenal. It was like borderline unbeatable. We loved it. There was people everywhere. We go out on the water whenever we felt like it, all that stuff. We had a little beach down there. But from September through April, there was nothing. And you were like stuck there because you were out of town. There's really no place to go and walk because you're surrounded by woods, which are beautiful, but it got very isolated really, really quick. So the transition to living in downtown here has been really great for us. We load up. Well, we don't load him up anymore. We used to load up the kid, but now he has to walk, as you know.
Gets in.
Yep. And he's ready to go. So we, get him out and get him ready and get the dogs all ready to go. We trek around town. We go hit up the St. Francis playground with all the toys. We need to upgrade the toys, man.
Will he go to St. Francis?
I don't know.
Has to.
I don't know. The hardest thing to go back to know my truth is childcare here.
Yeah, that's a big deal here.
We're on. It was a big deal everywhere. We just happened to get on lists earlier in Charlevoix. But I think we're on like 3 wait lists right now, and it's backed up. And I get that there's not enough childcare, as there is, not enough of just about everything here.
And not to put your not dirty laundry, but not to put you on blast, but it's not like you have a small budget. I mean, you and your wife do very well, and you're not, and the reason I'm bringing this up is there's some people that have budget constraints that cause childcare to be an issue. You don't have that. It's still hard.
Right. Yeah. And we're very fortunate in that regard. And you're right. Like it's not a financial thing. It's literally
a problem.
Availability of anything.
So would you say the 2 biggest problems for living in Northern Michigan are
ethnic food? No, I'm just kidding.
That too. Housing. And look, you and I are both, and we talk about this a lot. There are certain problems that we just float above, but we still hit them. Housing, because you're trying to hire people too.
Yep.
And childcare, because the people you hire, you yourself need childcare. The people you hire need childcare.
I think the answer to that, childcare is really hard, and it takes people out of the workforce. But I think if I had to name the 2 biggest problems, I would say housing prices and healthcare.
Yeah.
Healthcare is obviously that's the field we're in, but just watching the hospitals try and staff everything from, even just down, people the candy stripers used to be what they're called. I can't think of what they're called.
I don't know. Yeah.
Greeters. Let's call them greeters.
Sure.
Just having people that will volunteer to be greeters to janitorial staff and the kitchen and the nurses and the techs and the doctors and the PAs. And you just can do the whole level. You can't get those people to come here. It all really stems from housing prices. Right. We've seen a 1,200, 1,500 square foot mobile home on an acre of land go from 65 to 85,000, maybe 100 if it's nice, to 290 in 3 years.
I tell this often, in my real estate business. The average sale in Petoskey 5 years ago was 280. Today it's 560. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's 100%.
It's 100%. I mean, and not even it's 100%, but it almost feels like more because 280 is obtainable. 560 is, and you would think you buy you and I growing up, you think you're going to buy a $500,000 house and it's going to be a mansion.
Huge, yeah.
Now you buy a $500,000 house and I invite you over and you're like, this is a regular house.
And that's the problem up here. And everyone not completely.
But would you agree with me that it's more? And this is, again, being as truthful as possible. And I think this is probably, more of a counteracting what I do for my daily living.
Right.
I saw.
So I'm not trying to slam you.
I saw, Rochester, Michigan, which is, you probably know it. It's a very high-end high-end community. They have the same median sale price we do as Petoskey, being Petoskey. Mm-hmm. Their average income is like 3 times as much. Yeah. Meaning, theoretically, if you work in Petoskey, you can't afford to live here.
I think that's extremely true. And yeah, that is the basis of, not to put you and your colleagues and the builders and everyone on blast, which is probably the biggest following of this podcast.
Sure.
And it's certainly not directly your fault by any means, but this industry is the stranglehold of all the other industries right now.
And even if you look at where we're in my office, downtown Petoskey, there's a builder above us, kitchen builders, architects, like this is everywhere, literally downtown. I'm looking at Quiet Moose, the high-end furniture store, Edgewater, high-end architect, down a block away is the high-end kitchen store. Like this is, not to put them on blast, but Glenwood above us, great builder. And obviously there are more affordable builders, but a year ago they told us they had 5 projects over $1,000 a square foot.
Right.
Now it's probably even more. And $1,000 a square foot, that is not, you and I do well. That is beyond us. That is like,
well, just put that into context. A 2,000 square foot home, which is it's $2 million.
$2 million for 2,000 square foot home. That's not big enough for your family.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I'm not that needy.
Well, hey.
I grew up in Royal Oak. I really grew up in Troy. I'm from Troy, went to Royal Oak School, so I always struggle to say where I'm from. I grew up in a 985 square foot ranch, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and it's all you really ever need. But now my parents, my mom and dad say this all the time, so I've forgotten it. But let's just say I think it was 56,000 is what they paid for
That's
it
incredible.
in 1970 something. In 2011, when they sold it, now obviously that had gone through a recession. I want to say they got 140,000 for it. It might not have been that much. It might have been like 125, 130,000 for it. That house today is 300,000.
Right.
But that's only, from when they bought it to sold it was 40 years. And from now until when they moved up here has been like 12 years, and it's doubled in price again. And I think that goes back to the affordability for everyone. These builders are all awesome. They build beautiful homes. One of the problems we have directly in this community is we don't have an affordable builder. We have probably 50 custom builders that build great houses. But in order for us to get back to a world where, a teacher, a nurse, even young, not that those aren't professionals, but young attorneys, young doctors, young
videographers, Dwan needs a house.
Dwan needs a house. The people we want to populate this area.
That we not even want, we need to be here.
Yes, we need
them to be here.
The housing prices have to be like 200 a square foot. And we're
beyond that.
We're miles from it. I was trying to do a little bit of research for this podcast today. And I was texting with a buddy who's a builder in Grand Rapids who builds custom homes that are really, really nice, but he tries to be affordable. And I was like, all right, man, if we could buy 10 acres of land, subdivide it into 20 lots, and we could build 20 houses, what is the cheapest you could do it per square foot? I don't want to be junk, but quality, but these are not certainly not low income, but like beginning level. I want starter homes. And he's like, I just don't know how you could do it for less than 275 to 300 a square foot.
So we have modular communities here, which are fine.
Right.
Boca Modulars, great homes, 500,000.
Right.
Which is tough.
Yeah, you're not.
Which is still unattainable for most people.
Right. I mean, that's more than we paid for our first, Ashley and I combined, our first 3 homes total did not cost 500,000. If you added them all up.
So we
sold all those houses.
We can stay here all day and talk about how we're, I don't want to say overpriced. I believe, and of course this is self-serving, a lot of people want to say that the prices are inflated now, and I actually disagree. I think the prices before were undervalued, because I think when you start comparing, when you look at a broad spectrum, when you compare this area to the entire country, it's still affordable, whether we like it or not. And compared to what it was, it's not. But I always tell the story. I was at a New Year's party. The people in Bay Harbor, the people next to me, were from Texas. They bought a house in Bay Harbor, which is like the most exclusive community in northern Michigan, sight unseen. And they were sitting next to me, and they get their phone out and they're like scrolling. They're like, yeah, we have this weird electric car in the garage that we got with the house. I'm like, you mean like a gem car? And they're like, yeah. And they were looking at Newport Beach, California, where houses are incredibly expensive. And they thought this seemed like a bargain to them.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit, because I think you and Ashley do a good job with this. We can whine about how expensive the prices are, but you're buying a lifestyle, and this is still a pretty cool place to live. And I think one of the reasons, what I was thinking of people I wanted on this podcast, I wanted to have you, is because not only have you been in Traverse City, Charlevoix, Petoskey, and if you don't want to, I don't want to put you on blast, but you have a boat in the marina, you live the northern Michigan, like you live the lifestyle.
Yeah. And that's
because where can you be where you live downtown in a beautiful home, walk to great restaurants, and also your boat's a few miles away in a great marina?
Yeah. And so many people that live downtown have their boats in the marina, in the clock tower that, sorry that you can't see this, but we're looking at it right now.
Right.
From that perspective, again, doing some research and talking about it earlier, they were like, well, what are you going to say about all this stuff? And I think we've crushed out all the negative aspects.
I agree. There is a positive side.
Oh, there is a massive positive side. I mean, okay, so we are looking at, for the crowd at home, we're looking at the marina. We're looking at Boyne Highlands. We're looking at Nubbs Knob. We're looking at the Bay. We're looking at Petoskey State Park. And I think I see Harbor Springs.
You do, of course.
From this window, where we just happen to be sitting.
And we're for those of you that don't know, not sure, Mike, we're in my brokerage. We're on the corner of Petoskey and Mitchell, which is like the smack dab in downtown Petoskey. And Mike's right. And not only are we seeing those things, we're a block from Chandler's. We're a block from Poor. I mean, these are you're buying a lifestyle here,
right? So getting to be able to wander around town and there's I don't want anyone at home to think it's like Chicago nightlife.
No, I mean Mike lives in a very nice home. Rode his bike here.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I mean that's something.
Yeah, so that goes back to like, and the other thing is, a lot of people, you talked about boats, and this is something that I talk with my dad about a lot, because we grew up on a nice little sailboat cruising from the Thumb, because I'm from Metro Detroit, so a lot of people kept their boats, and it would take us like 3 days to get up here.
Right.
And to get over here was like 5 or 6 days. So many people come from, Chicago or from Grand Rapids area or from Metro Detroit, and their whole goal, sorry, I don't want him just tapping the mic over here.
He's good.
Their whole goal is just to get here.
Right.
And we get to start from here.
100%.
So, everybody that comes to vacation from Michigan, Chicago, Ohio, Indiana, they're coming to this region and we get to call it home. So you're right. Like, we do get to walk down and jump on the boat, and then we go over to Petoskey State Park and we anchor and we swim, and then we go to work the next day.
Right.
That's a Tuesday night. And that is the huge upside. We have, I'll give you a plug. I don't know if you're doing it this year, but the fireworks.
Right.
We get to sit on our deck and watch the fireworks over the bay. You're right. There are very good restaurants here. The other great thing, even though we live downtown, is in 5 minutes or less, you can be in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
If you want to go for a walk in the woods, Ashley and I and our 2 dogs and our son have taken to doing hikes every other night, where we hit one of the awesome Little Traverse Bay Conservancy properties that have great pathways, and it's all free. And
I want to stop you. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
I want to stop you. That is one thing that I like about living in an area. And this is, look, we can, slam the rich, promote the rich, whatever you want to do. One of the benefits of living in an area with a lot of wealthy people is you get things like nature preserves. These people are, there are people that buy, and this is the truth, entire golf courses that were going out of business and turn them into nature preserves. You don't get that in poor areas.
No,
and I don't want to promote this after again. I don't want to promote this as only an area for the wealthy, but if you can afford to live here, there is somewhat of a reward at the end of the rainbow.
Well, you talk about that, and it's not that I disagree. It's just that there is, for people who are listening to this podcast that are thinking about, do I come here? Do I not? If you happen to stumble upon this and you're trying to decide if this is a place for you, you also have, we've talked about Traverse City, Charlevoix, Petoskey, Harbor Springs, but you've also got Pellston, you've got Wolverine,
Ellsworth.
If
you go to Kuwait, it's funny you mentioned that, because we had a guy come in the office yesterday who, I love the story, but he has like a $250 budget. Mm-hmm. And you know what? You're not going to live where Mike Rossman lives and walk to Chandler's, but you can live 10 minutes away, 15, 20 minutes away, and drive into Chandler's, and you get 80% of the lifestyle that you get for a lot less of the money.
Right. And
so you're right about that. There is, it's not super convenient, but there are still places you can live here that are affordable.
Well, I'll tell the story about one of our, Ashley and I just took a awesome trip to Italy. We got to see our exchange student. And while we were gone, we're like, we don't really want our house to be completely empty. And one of the people that we work with was like, I'll stay. And she stayed there for 2 weeks, and we came back. We're like, well, what'd you think? She's like, I can't get used to looking out the window and seeing other houses. And there's a good portion of people, my parents included, who want property, and we've got a ton of it. Now, you and I have this week talked about the price of that vacant land going absolutely insane. But, like you said, in those 10 to 15 minute radius, you still have the $2,500 to $3,000 an acre properties. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people moving from downstate. I know you're from up here, so you're not quite as used to it, but where I grew up, you could literally, like, my dad, he's not going to hear this, so we can embarrass him.
Could do it.
He would be, his famous saying about living in Troy was, I don't want to live in a place where if I fart, I have to say, excuse me, to my neighbor.
Right. That's funny.
And, that's something that a lot of people in Northern Michigan want, is that space. And we've got a ton of that. I think that's a really cool thing too. There is a lot to say about the lifestyle of living downtown. I really enjoy it. Just being able to jump on the wheelway, which runs all around the bay.
Absolutely.
You and I talked a little bit about what we would talk about tonight. So Rossman Eye Care is our business.
Yeah.
Ashley is the ophthalmologist. I run the practice, and we've got an awesome team. There's a ton of people that support us and are wonderful, and it's allowed us to grow a lot. So we've recently acquired Professional Optical, and that is an optical shop in the Burns Clinic with two great opticians, David and Alan, and
so if you need glasses, go there.
If you need glasses, that's the plug.
Is.
Dr. Deb Denton recently joined us and her team, and she staffs that. And all that to say, there's been tremendous growth in the practice, and we're building a new building out towards Bay Harbor across from Jensen's Animal Hospital.
If you drive, not to interrupt you, if you drive, I noticed this. If you drive towards Bay Harbor and you see the giant construction site on the north side of the road, that's you.
That's us. Yeah.
That's you.
And so,
which is great.
Yeah, it's cool. To loop that back into the wheelway, I'm super excited to ride my little electric
from the
assist.
office.
Yeah, I'm going to ride to work because I can ride down to this wheelway.
Why do you need an electric assist bike?
Because I have a 3-year-old who has a trailer. And if you've tried to go up Mitchell Street, which is a gigantic hill, I mean, I don't do CrossFit every day like you. So
there's no hills on the wheelway.
Yeah, there is. Have you ever ridden the wheelway? Before
CrossFit, I used to ride from here to Charlevoix and back. So, there are hills. You're right.
No, you actually, before this, you're probably right, because remember, the trail washed out.
The poor part is the part that washed out is like the best view.
I know.
I still have pictures of it.
But the new huge hills are a result of you having to go around that. So you have to go around the backside of McLaren. You have to do a giant zigzag, and then you do it. So
I'm salty because I'll be riding my bike really fast, and somebody that's much, much, much older than me will pass me on their electric assist bike. But if that gets you out there, great.
No, that's A, gets you out there, but B, I love riding bikes. I grew up riding everywhere as a kid, and then I worked on Mackinac Island for a very long time.
So you know about bikes?
Yeah, love.
We haven't even talked about, you used to work at Sheplers, right?
Yeah, I worked at Sheplers, I think 13 or 14 years.
That's a cool job.
Very part-time towards the end, probably the last 5 years would be 2 weekends to 3 weekends a year max. So.
Are you literally the epitome of somebody who has spent their whole life in Northern Michigan?
No.
I've never thought about that. You worked at Sheplers. Now you get to live. You went from literally working at Sheplers to now living in not even downtown Petoskey, but Mitchell Street. And if anybody that is listening to this that knows Petoskey, that's like, I pay extra for my office because it has a Mitchell Street address.
Well, no, I think to loop back to Mackinac Island, and I think about a quarter of the people that work and live on Mackinac, or not live, but work on Mackinac, live on Mitchell Street, or did at one time. You had the Musser family. You've got the Porters, the
Green,
nephews.
Iris sold his house.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've got a lot of the people that. So when I worked at Sheplers, people were like, I live in Petoskey, and I always thought,
me too.
45 minutes away. No, I didn't. It was really far. And you asked about the epitome of Northern Michigan. I think I wanted to be here. I never thought I would. But no, I'm from Metro Detroit, and I spent my college years in Kalamazoo, and I spent my law school years in Grand Rapids, and I started my career in Grand Rapids. I figured that would be home, as did my parents, who are still a little salty about it because they built a very nice home with a number of bedrooms and a bunch of property, and they're like, oh, they'll want it when Mike gets married and has kids. They'll want to come up and visit and stay here. And now we live 20 minutes away, and they've got this pretty big house that Ashley and I and Arnie. Well, Arnie stays there a lot. We're very fortunate.
Where's the house?
Just north of Shearschmidt off Pleasant View.
Did I know that?
Or on Shearschmidt, just north of Stutz.
Yeah, I know that.
I don't know if you knew that.
Interesting.
So my parents live at the top of a little Michigan mountain, and they've got their pole barn and they're side by side. My dad's happy as a clam with a chainsaw, and my mom's planting a million flowers, and that's what they do. So no, to answer your question, I probably don't consider myself the epitome of Northern Michigan. I consider it home now, but I didn't know I was going to end up here. As a matter of fact, I never really planned on ending up here.
So I'll tell you.
So I think you are, because you're from here.
I'll say it wrong. You're not the epitome of Northern Michigan. You're the epitome of Michigan.
Yeah.
Very few people have lived in Grand Rapids, Royal Oak, Troy, now Traverse City, Charlevoix, Petoskey. I mean, what else is there? You got to go to the UP next?
No, Ashley would absolutely murder me.
Yeah,
I think if we
stay
moved
below the bridge,
we stayed 4 miles north of Harbor Springs, I think she might murder me, because every time we move, it's north. Grand Rapids to Traverse City to Charlevoix, Charlevoix, Petoskey. No, so I think this is far north.
This is it.
We go, yeah. You know, it's if you go much further north, it gets pretty quiet.
It does.
And
it's different.
Yeah. So no, I think this is it. We were just on Mackinac Island a couple weeks ago with a big group of friends. And
I wasn't in that group, so
weren't. I'm sorry.
Are we just not that group? Not that good of friends.
It was a retirement party. I didn't make the guest list.
All right.
Neither
did I. I didn't make the guest list.
Right.
Either.
We treated it like a bunch of 21-year-olds. We got a party bus for
on the island.
Well, from here.
Oh, okay.
So the group that went, it was a retirement party for a doctor that's at Charlevoix, who happens to be the mother of some of our good friends. And we all just decided to celebrate her and go up. So at 8:00 in the morning on a Sunday, a party bus rolled up and 10 people jumped out to use the bathroom at our
Do you want
house.
to shout out the party bus? Because I don't know any party buses here.
I wish I could. And
who booked it? Ashley?
No, our friend who is a PA at Charlevoix,
all right.
Murphy Gillespie. I can't remember.
All right, you're good then.
Sorry. You guys were great. You did a wonderful job, whoever you were. But yeah, so Arnie, our son, comes out and he's like, we're going to work. You know, you tell these little white lies to your kids. You know, he's not going to understand mom and dad are going on a party bus to go hang out with friends. So we're like, oh, we're going to work. And he comes out, he's like, there's a bus here, and he loves cars.
Of course.
We're like, yeah, we're going to take the bus to work with our friends, Jared and Max, who also live in town. And so we got our little backpacks on and our cooler of sangria, and we jump on this party bus and go to Mackinac Island. And to circle that back to this podcast and living here, you don't get to do that.
100%.
You know,
that's the thing.
Mackinac Island just got voted the #1 tourist
in the country.
Yeah, #1 summer destination in the country. And we just went there on a Sunday for a good time.
It's half hour away, $30.
Yeah, we rode bikes around the island. We had pizza on the beach. We got rum runners, of course, with the floater. You know, we hit horns and we got fudge and all that stuff. And you just get to do that during the day if you live here. And I think that those type of things are the huge benefits of living here. The other big thing, I think, that people from south of here, we get a lot of snow in the winter. And people that are from south here are like, oh,
not this winter.
Not this winter, yeah. And it sucked.
Do you guys ski? Do I know that? Do you ski?
We do. If you'll remember, one of our reasons we moved here is Ashley broke her hip.
Oh, that's right. I did know that.
Breckenridge. And
she's always breaking stuff.
Well, that led to her breaking her wrist.
That could be a whole other podcast.
That's a different.
I'm going to do a podcast, Ashley breaking stuff.
We're going to bring Ashley in for that one. There's some funny stories that I'm not going to tell. She can tell.
She can tell.
And some terrible ones that go along with it. But yeah, it's been tough, but it has led to good things.
Sure, that's life.
Yep. So all of that to say, I think you asked about, we talked about negative stuff to start. I think those are the positives. I think, you know, it's a small community. I was telling you before we started the podcast that I'm so terrified of being at the intersection we're looking at, because I know Candace is normally at that desk, and like the one time I go to pick my teeth at an intersection, I know Candace can be like, that guy's gross. So you wouldn't get that in a big city though. Like,
no, you wouldn't.
You would just do it. No one would ever care because you'd never see that person again. Whereas Candace would text me and be like, hey man, maybe just floss.
But also if you didn't drive a very recognizable car.
No, I don't. I drive a gray F-150.
Okay. She probably doesn't see you in that as much as the
I
Bronco.
know. I'm trying to blend in.
Who did I pass this morning going to Charlevoix early?
Ashley. Ashley had surgery this morning. So Ashley's car is the powder
baby blue sick Ford Bronco, the new one.
Yeah, it's
as cool as it gets.
It's a super cool car. That was her choice. She's never asked for a car before. The only car she's ever loved before this, I think, was her orange Renegade that I didn't make her get rid of by any means, but we couldn't get our dog and our luggage in to come up here in the tiny Jeep Renegade. So I think that was the only other car she's ever loved, and she was like,
"That's a cool car. The Bronco's a cool car.
It's a cool car, and it's cool." But the downside is, you and everyone else I know are always like, "What are you doing? Why are you at Petoskey Sands? Why are you here? What do you that kind of thing?" Having a super recognizable car.
Is that cool or not cool?
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Personal brand.
yeah, it's fun. It's something that, you just got to get used to and know that people are going to know where you're at. Although there is another one now, a small one at the top of the hill. Arnie points that out all the time. He's like, the small one, the small one. I think the people that live at the top of the hill at Mitchell and Kalamazoo.
That's there. You always see it there. When I go to CrossFit, I see it there.
Yeah, they've got
It's exactly the same as yours.
It's the short version.
Right.
The tube one.
So fun fact, DeJuan has the short version.
Oh, there you
His
go.
is black.
Very good. So
If those light blue, you don't.
yeah, things like that are what's crazy about a small town. So I grew up in...
That's the truth. That's the truth.
And you're from a small town, but I'm from Metro Detroit.
Nobody would care.
No. I grew up in a city, I call it a town because I'm so used to living in a town, a city of 100,000 people. I think there was like 95,000 people.
Right.
Like, there's probably 10 of those things in that city,
Right.
and no one could ever track you.
Right.
And that's what I'm used to. So coming to this place, and Traverse City, even when we lived there, was much smaller, and we lived on up the peninsula a ways.
Yeah, did you live on the peninsula?
We did. We lived right between, for those of you that know all the wineries, Hawthorne, Bonobo.
Bonobo's what I know.
Yeah, that's the one right on center. And then our favorite was, oh my gosh, I'm blanking, Bowers Harbor.
Okay. Yeah, I like Bowers. I've heard of it. I don't know.
It's a super nice little place. And we lived right kind of in the middle of those three. It was just a quiet place and the same kind of thing. Like, you drive down the street and your neighbors wave at you. I legitimately cannot tell you the name of either neighbor on either side of my house growing up.
Right.
I have no idea. It's just, it's so different growing up in a small versus big town. Like, I truly don't know the people who were from me to the wall away from here. I don't know their names.
So one of the fun things about this podcast for me as the host is so far we've had 3 guests who I know very well.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of you I know very well. And I've learned something about all of you, which almost has sort of surprised me that I didn't know these things. So when DeJuan, who runs this, was one of our guests, he said the thing that surprised him the most about living in Northern Michigan, no, he came from Detroit, not Royal Oak or Troy,
right.
Detroit
Yeah.
Was like, and I've probably told 20 people since this because it just shocked the hell out of me, was like just walking. Like, if I went to your house at Mitchell, I'd probably tell you I was coming, but I would open the door.
Yeah.
And DeJuan said, you don't do that in Detroit.
No,
when I tell people that, they're like, what?
I get super, so our dogs bark.
Right.
And I get super frustrated. And this goes directly to your point. When people knock, I'm like, just come in. Like, the dog won't bark if you just come through the door. But if you knock, and yeah, you're right. I mean, that is a crazy difference. And the same in Metro Detroit. Like, not pure downtown, but you lock everything and you wouldn't just walk into somebody's house. And in addition, I think one of the things that's blown me away about small town and living here in town that is super cool is the number of people that just stop by our house, because Petoskey is a hub for, it's the biggest town.
It's like Petoskey's like the capital of Northern Michigan. Right. Outside of Traverse City.
Right. If you know Traverse City, Petoskey or Gaylord, maybe.
Right. Maybe.
But as far as living in this region, the Northwest region, it's Petoskey. So our friends that are from Charlevoix that are coming up here for a show or whatever,
anything.
They'll just like stop and we get to sit down with them for 20 minutes while they're doing their thing and conversate with them, or our neighbors that just happen to walk by and stop, and or I'll be out like cutting the grass or something and people will just like pull up and start talking to me about our lawnmower. Like, the number of people who want to talk about the lawnmower, which is something.
Plug it. What kind of lawnmower do you have? What is it? I don't even know.
It is, it is an electric lawnmower.
Oh, I saw that on social media.
Yeah, Ashley.
Is it EcoGo or something?
Ego, yeah.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Oh, it's awesome. It's really quiet. I mean, it's great in that sense. Like, it's quiet. It's way overkill for what we have, but like anything else, crunch time. And this is something that we can circle back on the craziness of Northern Michigan. We'll go back to one negative once I'm done with this.
All right.
Just cutting the grass. And it was one of the things where when we lived in Charlevoix, we had no lawn because we lived in the trees. You saw that house.
Of course.
You remember that. When we lived in Traverse City, it was the exact same thing. We had no lawn because we lived in the trees. So when we moved here, I was like, we've got a lawn. Like, it's going to be lush and dark green. It's going to be amazing. I'm still working on it. It's rough. Turns out that's a lot harder than people make it out to be.
Yeah, it's a job.
But yeah, I was like, I'm going to buy this really cool lawnmower, and Ashley still thinks I'm ridiculous, and we don't really have a place for it, but it survived and it's fun. So people see it and they want to like talk about it. So back to one negative, getting anyone in Northern Michigan to do anything of that sort is wild.
That is something that nobody has mentioned, but is 100% the truth.
Yes.
So thank you.
So I'll just share it because it's something we're talking about. I have not gotten a quote to cut our grass. Now, you sold us our house. You know what it looks like for the crowd at home.
It's the most, I'm not going to say the price, one of the most recognizable houses in downtown Petoskey.
Yes. And it's beautiful. The house itself is beautiful. It sits up on a hill. It's very cool. But our lawn is not big. It is less than 15,000 square foot, the lawn, which is less than, I don't know, like a quarter or a fraction of some acreage. So it is not a big lawn. The cheapest quote we have gotten to get the grass cut is $250 per week.
That's a lot of
$1,000.
That's a lot of money.
I was like, I can buy this lawnmower and pay for it in half a summer. And yeah, it's so things like that, or getting even just to get it fertilized, or to get someone to check the electrical or the plumbing or whatever. It is so hard up here. Not only financially, but also
availability.
Yes. You'll be like, hey man, my lights, Ashley, I put in 2 light fixtures in our home.
Good for you. Good.
Thank you. And they stopped working almost immediately.
Yes. Because you don't know what you're doing.
Because I have no idea what I'm doing. Because I'm an attorney, not an electrician. Turns out those people are.
They don't mix.
No, they don't. But to circle back, I finally got an electrician out just yesterday, and he's like, oh no, they're fine. Like, you did a good job. You had cheap light bulbs in there. They're burning out because they're super cheap light bulbs. And I put a fan in our bedroom, and he can't figure this out, and I don't know what it is, but it'll just, so the fan's on.
Yeah.
There's power to the light. So the light may not be on, but there's power to the light. At like 2:00 in the morning, sometimes the light will just come on.
Really?
Yeah, full blast.
Is that the most annoying thing in the world?
Oh yeah. I mean, to be like
sleeping
and have like this full beam light just turn on in you. So our house is also very, very old.
Yes.
It's probably, I think.
But updated.
Yeah, very updated. But our neighbor, who happens to be on the historical board of Petoskey, told me it's like the 3rd or 4th house in Petoskey.
Is that right?
Downtown. Obviously, the surrounding area is older than that. But so we joke that there's ghosts. There's some kind of poltergeist or something that hits the button.
Of Hemingway.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Hemingway's ghost is turning on our lights. So all that stuff, that is the only negative. The other negative I can come up with is getting anyone to do anything through no fault of their own. I don't blame these people. I understand everyone has to make a living, and we talked about housing prices are high, and becoming an electrician or a plumber or anything else like that takes a lot of schooling. There are apprenticeships. It's really it's a trade, and it's tough to do. So it's another thing that because we do not have affordable housing, these people can't live here either. So that is my only other negative comment. What I will say on a positive note right now is...
Yeah, you say a lot of negative for someone that bought an expensive house here.
Yeah, I know. I'm very sorry. I'm looking at the sunset, and that's another awesome positive. We get to watch sunset over Lake Michigan every night, and that's super duper cool.
So this podcast I knew was going to get off the rails because you and I are such good friends and we talk so much.
Yeah.
I haven't even started the questions yet, and we're probably where we should be done.
Duan, how long do we have?
How long have we been in this?
44 minutes.
Dude, we got 60 minutes to crank out those questions.
So we just broke the record for the longest podcast, and I haven't even started asking you what I want to ask you.
Let's do it. I'm here.
I'm only going to ask you this because you mentioned the island, so I'm going to make you do both. What is your favorite restaurant on Mackinac Island and Petoskey? Actually, I'm going to do it. Pick one of, you said 4 places in northern Michigan that people care about. What's your favorite restaurant on Mackinac Island, Petoskey, Charlevoix, Traverse City? Go.
All right. We'll start north to south. So Mackinac Island, the woods.
The woods is a good experience.
Yes.
That's a one-of-a-kind experience.
It is super cool. For those of you that don't know.
Yeah, tell the story. Because you got to tell. Nobody knows what the woods is.
Right. It's a Grand Hotel restaurant.
Yes.
So you start at the Grand Hotel, you get on a carriage, and you take this carriage through the woods, normally at night, and it's beautiful. You come back to this restaurant that is on the West Bluff. It's gorgeous.
I'll tell you this. I'm so happy you said that. I think that is the number one dining experience in Northern Michigan is going to the woods on Mackinac Island for dinner. You better have the whole day to do it.
Yeah.
But it's as good as it gets.
I actually would probably agree with you. It is super, between the food being very good.
It is.
And the experience just being incredible. It's an old hunting lodge or something.
Super cool.
And it's super duper cool. So we'll start with the woods.
All right.
Petoskey. I don't know.
Where do you guys, when you and Ashley are going out to dinner in Petoskey, where do you go? Petoskey's tough. I'm with you there.
Petoskey's tough. Probably Backlot. So
That's
we can
fine.
get a few
Backlot's
different,
fine.
a
Backlot's
few different
fine.
things. I mean, it's a cool place. You get to pick a couple different things.
What's your favorite food truck?
Oh, for me, that's super duper easy. I'm always going to be Happy's. I love
Sure.
Happy's.
What do you get there?
I get the burrito bowl with the smoked potatoes.
That's a win.
It's a good
Are you
one.
vegan?
No.
Okay.
No. I've been trying to cut back on the red meat, heart disease in the family, the fun
Don't
stuff.
want big muscles.
Yeah, I don't want big muscles. Charlevoix, I'm going to go. The Landing is the easiest
Yeah, I
answer. The
agree with
Landing
that.
is the coolest place. Unfortunately, they're only open from Memorial Day to Labor Day, but to pull up to a restaurant in your boat, get off, have a good couple of great drinks, a great meal. They're fast. They do a good job. It's always the same as far as quality goes. That's an easy one for me.
The food always tastes better if you get there by boat.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing. Everything's better if you get there by boat.
True.
That's just life. And then Traverse City.
This is a tough one because I know people, I have to interrupt you. I know people who travel a lot that say Traverse City has one of the best dining scenes in the world.
Okay. I mean, I have to say there are a lot of great restaurants. I wouldn't say the world, but I will say this is going to be a little bit of a controversial one.
In a second, I'm going to tell everybody why we're drinking on this podcast.
Yes.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
There's some betting involved, and
There's
I
some
lost.
betting involved, but this is us paying a debt
Yes.
or him paying a debt.
Me paying a debt. I'm going to say my two restaurants because I can't just because Traverse City is a dining capital. Two places. The best experience to me is the Boathouse.
Yes, 100%.
Same thing for the other reasons we mentioned those other restaurants is you're right on the water.
Yes.
It's beautiful. They do a phenomenal job with food. So I'm going to say that's the best experience. But if we're going straight on food, my favorite, has to be Georgina's.
Is it still there?
So, not to be too controversial, obviously there was some issues there when
Yes.
they were in their old
I
location.
don't know the story, but yes.
The story's not good.
Okay, fine.
The owner had some issues. Because
they had a place in Harbor for a while, for like one season.
Yeah, they had a place in Harbor, they had a place in Grand Rapids,
Harbor Springs. Yeah.
Harbor Springs. No, they're on the east side now. No, west side. They're on the far west side.
Traverse?
Yes.
I did not know
They've got a little spot. It's him and like three other people.
Is it called Georgina's?
Yep.
Interesting.
No, it's called Little G's.
Oh, okay.
And
I can remember that.
it's like across from CVS before you get to the west end of town between North Peak and CVS.
Got you. Yep.
It's just a tiny little spot, outdoor dining, but the same food. And I always love the food. So those would be my picks.
Have you been to Pepe Nero in Traverse City, the state hospital?
I always get confused between Pepe Nero and what's the other one? Stella's. They're in the same building.
Same building. So
I don't know.
it's
I've been
funny.
to one of them.
The reason I
know
asked,
the
I
other.
went to Pepe Nero last night. Amber, my girlfriend, loves Pepe Nero. I like Pepe Nero's good. It's an Italian place. It's obviously I'm Italian. It makes sense. I think the Boathouse is between those two. I think those two are my two favorite. The Boathouse is very northern Michigan. They're very northern Michigan menu. I learned a trick at the Boathouse. If you get the cheap wine, you don't know this because you get the expensive wine, I'm sure.
Oh,
Because
no.
you're rich.
God, no.
Because you're rich.
Absolutely not.
So when you get the cheap wine at the Boathouse, they give you the glass with the Boathouse logo. If you get the expensive wine, like you do probably, they give you the big wine glasses without the logo on them. So
That is good to know. So
Fun fact.
to comment on your comment about my rich wine experience,
Your
my
wealth.
wealth and everything, which I don't have, we just got back from a trip to Rome to visit.
It's very hard to say you're not wealthy and then say, oh, by the way, I just got back from Rome.
I know that was a tough transition. That was
not a great
but
transition.
we're gonna get there.
Did you fly Spirit?
Yeah.
I bet.
The back. No, but the wine, we were talking about expensive wine. My buddy I was talking to who travels extensively, I was like, hey man, what are your tips for this Italian trip? I've never been. And he was like, just get the house wine. He's
And
like,
it's cheap.
That's where I'm going.
Okay.
We went to this little sandwich. Actually, we were walking down the street and she's like, let's go here. And it's just this little sandwich shop, nothing special, nothing to write home about, not Instagram famous or TikTok or anything like that. And we got a sandwich. It was phenomenal. And I was like, I'll take a wine. Because you can buy wine at like a children's furniture store.
And isn't it like $3 a bottle?
Yeah, it's very cheap. We'll get there. I'll tell that quick story too.
Okay.
I got a glass of wine for €2 in a literal plastic solo cup, not even a big one. And it was amazing. So to circle back to your disparaging comments, no, I do not buy the expensive wine. I buy the house wine because it's normally phenomenal.
So fun fact, we were at Pepinera last night and they bring us, this is a good story. They bring us the wine menu and my grandfather is from Italy and he's from the Abruzzo region. So the way the menu's set up, there's Sardinia, Abruzzo, 2 wines. I picked the one that I think is from Abruzzo. It's not. So we order it. I'm like bragging that, yeah, I bought this wine, the bottle of wine, because it's from where my grandfather's from. The waiter said, no, it's not. And I'm like, oh. So not only this guy's a better salesman than me, which is terrible, sells me the bottle for Abruzzo for $30. He brings me out. He's like, I'm going to do it. And I've got to negotiate everything. So I'm like, I'll buy this wine, but can I get a better deal? He's like, can't give you a better deal, but I'll give you like a taste of like whatever. So he brings out this wine. He sells me the bottle and then brings out this wine. 2 tastes, $45 a glass. I can't tell the difference between $45 glass wine and $2 glass wine. Maybe I'm just not sophisticated. Too much Northern Michigan. I don't know what the hell the difference is.
I don't think so. I think that's one of those things. Like as we sit here drinking bourbon, you can buy a very nice bottle of wine. To circle back to our bet, and you can buy.
Yeah, why are we drinking bourbon?
A house recently came up for sale here in Petoskey, which we both thought was exorbitantly priced, and I guessed 1.9.
I think so.
And you guessed 2.
Which kind of a dick move, I feel like. That was just...
I was doing prices right there. I was just going right below you.
I said $1. I should have said $1.
I made you go, I even made you go first, which was probably a low blow. But you're the professional, so it's handicap.
Yeah, I do agree that I should probably know the prices better than you, but
that's
in this market, do we know?
Well, to your point, that's why we're drinking this bottle, which came from my home, because I lost that bet and the house closed at $2 million, exactly as you said.
So if you're listening to this later on or watching it live, it's 8 o'clock at night in Petoskey. Usually we do these, or it's 9 o'clock now. Usually we do these during the day, so I wouldn't be drinking if it was during the day because I would have to go to work after this, but now I don't have to go to work after
and
this.
And we're watching the sunset from your office. So cheers.
Cheers.
Go on.
What would you describe the vibe if you had to say in a couple words, what is the vibe in Northern Michigan?
Well, mainly because I'm not from Gen Z. I don't know what you mean. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I think it goes back to the comment we had about we don't do that here. And what you and I are wearing right now is what we would wear 98% of the time for work.
Yeah, you're wearing, in case you're not watching us, you're wearing a very nice polo, but it has Michigan, and you're wearing khakis and Colon shoes. I'm wearing a polo, nice jeans, and New Balance shoes.
Right, and that is, I think that's...
And by the way, if I went to list $1 million house, they'd probably be okay with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I can't think of anything... that's the vibe. It's a beach community here in Petoskey specifically. Resort. I think so. Ashley and I got married up here as well. We got married.
Where'd you get married?
We got married on Mackinac, a little stone church, and then we did the dinner at the Dark Sky Park up in Mackinac City.
Is that right?
Yeah, they just built that when we did it. Our friends got married there like a year before, and we loved it. And that was like what our invitation said. It was like resort casual. Like you can wear shorts, wear a shirt. Like we don't care. And I think that's kind of the vibe up here is. Even though we're all working and living and, it's professional, everyone wants to be ready to walk out on a golf course or out to the boat or throw on a fleece and go out and ski. I know
or hike. Or there's so many. What I love about Northern Michigan is there are so many different versions. And I think there are different levels. And what I think is cool about Northern Michigan is, look, there are the guys that are not us yet. Maybe we'll get, hopefully we're on our way. We talk about this a lot. Hopefully we're on our way. Yeah. There are guys in Bay Harbor that have 100-foot boats in their backyard that travel the world, and that is their version of Northern Michigan.
Yeah.
There's also the people that are teachers that love to hike on the weekends, and they love living in Northern Michigan. And I think that is one thing that's very special about Northern Michigan is both of those people love living here. It's not You don't have to be wealthy.
Right. Yeah. It's
and you
very
still can love
accessible.
living. It's very accessible. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, to talk about winter, obviously winter here is kind of the redhead stepchild. I mean, it's not what people live here for, but a lot of people love it.
I think that Thanksgiving to January 1st is a very special. Somebody's beeping us
Oh,
listening
man.
live.
Yeah, they can see us.
They saw Dewan. I think that I shouldn't say Thanksgiving, the Halloween. So for me, my birthday's October 21st. A week later's Halloween, which I love, and you're going to love that too, especially when your son gets a little bit older and loves to dress up. You go right from that into Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year. That week between Christmas and New Year.
Oh, it's my favorite.
I would trade that for the July 4th week. That is the best week in Northern Michigan.
It's great.
Change my mind.
Well, I'm not going to change your mind. What I'm going to say is I think the period, yes, and obviously that's one thing about living in Petoskey in particular and on Mitchell Street. It was the most fun. Now, we had terrible weather this year.
This year was terrible.
But the most fun was passing out, I think, and I'm sure I'm not quite right, but I think we passed out 1,400 airheads on Halloween.
I remember when you bought that house asking us how much candy you needed. And whatever it was at the time was not enough.
I bought like 600. I was like, there is no way.
You can't have your house and give out shit candy.
Well, that's, we didn't, obviously there is some kind of budgetary crisis on Earth. Yeah, Dewan's beeping.
Is Dewan telling us we got to stop?
Dewan's beeping us out.
Dewan, what are we at time-wise?
4 minutes.
Until what?
Until you're at an hour.
We have 4 minutes.
Does it matter?
I mean, if you wanted to keep it, I'll just let you know.
Okay. My fear with having a good friend who. So here's the thing.
We have a couple drinks. We
have a couple drinks.
Halloween.
I didn't know the drinks when I planned this. My fear to stop this was when you had a good friend who has lived not Northern Michigan, who has lived the Michigan dream. Is how do you stop this?
Yeah, and the answer to that is we do 2 parts.
That's right.
We'll come back and do it again. But to answer, then Dewan's like,
Dewan's like, I got shit to do.
I'm going home.
I'm hungry. I got pizza.
The time between Halloween and Christmas is phenomenal. Halloween was super fun. They shut down the street. You pass out tons of
Downtown
candy.
Petoskey is sweet for Halloween.
Yes. And then you roll straight into Thanksgiving, which is super fun. In the middle there, you have hunting season, which is one of my favorite times of the year. And that's like a national holiday up here.
It is. They close schools.
Yeah, they say they close the schools. But then I think probably my favorite time here is the open house weekend.
Oh my gosh, it's lit.
Between having, the open house in Harbor Springs where you go over there and the Petoskey Steel Drum Band plays on the street. Everyone's got food, wine, drinks, cheese, all that good stuff. You do some Christmas shopping, come back over here and do the same thing in Petoskey. I think that's super duper cool.
I'm with you.
You get the snow, you get the Christmas lights in all these old Victorian homes. Yeah, that is, to talk about winter, that's super cool. And then to loop back to Northern Michigan being accessible as well, you get Wednesday nights, the different radio stations or TV stations, $10 rentals, $10 lift tickets, $10 lessons. There's plenty to do for every walk of life here. You don't have to be a Bay Harbor member to have fun here. You can be anything and enjoy living in Northern Michigan. And I think that's
was that a subtle shot at me?
That was based upon the wine comment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That's payback.
So, all right. I love this, Mike. I thank you so much. This is the first time ever I had a list of questions. I didn't ask you a single one.
No, you did. You asked me my favorite restaurant, so you got something.
Literal
done.
1 out of 30 questions. You did such a good job of telling everybody. I think anybody listening to this will understand. If you're rich, you're gonna love Northern Michigan. No, I'm just kidding. Northern Michigan is a great place. If you find your spot, there's a place for everyone, whether you're rich or poor. It's just a great lifestyle. So I thank you so much for coming. We're definitely going to have you back once we get this podcast more polished. We'll do a better job next time. And cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dewan. Thank you.
Thanks, Dewan.
Gino. Thank you.
All right. Until next time, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys.